Hey, friends, I'm back. Let me begin with a picture. Not a verse, not an idea, a moment. Imagine standing in Egypt after a long and brutal day. Your hands are cracked, your back aches, the air is thick with dust and heat. All day long, you've heard shouting, faster, faster, harder, more bricks, come on. And then suddenly, silence. The whip stops, the shouting fades. No one is telling you where to go next or what to do next. And you don't even know how to stand without being commanded. And then the word spreads quietly, carefully, almost in disbelief. You hear there's going to be a day without labor, one day a week. You see Moses, the leader, the hero in this week's Torah portion. He was raised in Pharaoh's palace. He did something extraordinary. He spoke the language that Pharaoh understood, and he said, Pharaoh, give those Jewish people a pause. Stronger slaves will work better. And Pharaoh agreed. He liked that idea. And that is how the Jews were given the gift of Shabbat while they were slaves. Pharaoh really had no idea what he was just allowed, that he just allowed the Jewish people in the world to keep Shabbat. And when that first Friday night arrived, something deeper than rest took place. Families gathered quietly. Hands still raw from the bricks and the mortar gently unrolled fragile scrolls. And in those scrolls were not strategies or schedules, but promises of ancient promises that were whispered from parents to children, that the slavery is going to end, that freedom is going to come, and that God did not forget them. And something, my friends, shifted at that moment. Yes, they were slaves, but they were no longer owned. Shabbat was not simply a day off. It was the day their souls woke up. And week after week after week, Shabbat came back and always returned. And with it, a memory of an identity and a hope, a little sliver of hope. So many years later, when Moses finally stood before Pharaoh, he was 80 years old, and he said, let my people go. So Pharaoh panicked. He doubled the labor, crushed bodies, and he really struck the real target. You know what he said? No more Shabbat. No rest, no gatherings, no scrolls, no dreaming. Because Pharaoh finally understood the threat. Shabbat was not a pause. It was a resistance. It was a weekly reminder of who the Jewish people really were. And you know what? He was right, but he was too late. Because once a soul remembers who it is, it just simply cannot be enslaved ever again. So now let me ask you something personal. How far are we really from Egypt? I mean, we don't build bricks. We don't have to answer to taskmasters. But many of us live with the same pressures, the same relentless noise, the same fear that if we stop even for a moment, everything will fall apart. We wake up already being behind. We go to sleep planning the tomorrow. Life, at times, feels like a boulder rolling uphill. Pause for a moment, boom, it crashes back down. And Shabbat comes along and says, stop. And inside, many of us answer honestly, I can't stop. Not because we don't want to, because we're afraid. We're afraid of falling behind. We're afraid of losing momentum. We're afraid that that rest is going to cause us something. Friends, let me share a story. A while back, a couple of years ago, someone came to me. This person was not particularly observant. They weren't a rabbi. They were a kind, good, hard-working person, successful by many measures, but they were exhausted in a way sleep doesn't fix. And the person said, Rabbi, my life is full, but it feels hollow. I'm busy from morning until night, and I don't even know what I'm busy for. Well, I didn't tell him to change everything. And I didn't tell him to become someone else. But I asked this person one thing. Try one Shabbat. Not perfectly, but just honestly. The person looked at me like I asked him to quit his job. He says, I can't disappear for 25 hours. My whole life, everything's going to fall apart. So I said, nothing falls apart when you stop running for one day. You just finally notice what you have been running past. So that Friday night, the person had the candles lit, made the blessing on the wine, and for the first time in their life, awkwardly, uncertainly, felt the way they did. He put his phone away into another room just for the dinner. He sang a song of Shalom Aleichem. He sat with his family. They spoke not about logistics, just about life. And that Shabbat morning, he woke up without an alarm. For the first time in years, no one needed him immediately. And he said to me, Rabbi, it felt like I walked back into my own life. Nothing dramatic happened. No businesses collapsed. No deals were lost. But something shifted. Sunday, he went back to work, and everything felt different. He worked just as hard, but he was not chasing anymore. And for the first time, he said, I knew why I was working. Not just to survive, but to build, to provide, to live a life with a meaning. That one Shabbat did not make him perfect, but it made him present. And that presence changed everything. Because friends, this is what Shabbat does. Because Shabbat was never meant to pull us away from life. It was actually meant to return us to live life with clarity. Because, there are two ways that people approach work. The first are, some people work from fear. Work becomes survival. Their value becomes tied to how productive they are. And the rest feels dangerous. There's another group of people that work actually from trust. They work hard without panic. They believe God runs the world. God's in charge. And when something falls apart, they don't fall apart with it. And when a door closes, they pause. They trust. You know what? Another door is going to open. The difference is not the effort, my friends. The difference is meaning. Friends, here is the deeper truth in all of this. That Shabbos doesn't end when the candles go out. Shabbos actually is meant to shape the 6 days of the week that follow the Shabbat. It reminds us why we're going to work Sunday morning, why we answer emails, why we build businesses, why we push ourselves the other 6 days of the week. We work not because we're desperate, but we work because our work has purpose. And once we understand that, we begin to create Shabbat moments throughout the whole week. Shabbat moments on Sunday and on Monday and on Tuesday and on Wednesday and on Thursday and on Friday. A pause before a meeting. A blessing before we eat. A breath before reacting, or a quiet reminder in the middle of the rush of the days of the week that God is there too. These are weekday echoes of Shabbat. You see, my friends, Pharaoh, he feared Shabbat because people who remember their purpose cannot be controlled. 14% of life, that's the one day of the week. 14% of life, one day out of 7. And it transforms the other 86% of life. In Egypt, the Jews kept the Shabbat, and the Shabbat kept the Jews. And my friends, thousands of years later, it still does. Because right here in Nashville, Tennessee, amid busy scheduled traffic, you hear cars going in the background, amid deadlines, carpools, meetings, responsibilities, Shabbat reminds us that life is more than keeping up, that beneath the noise and the pace, there's a meaning and purpose and a holiness waiting to be felt. So my blessing to you today is that may Shabbat become more than a day on your calendar. May it become the place your soul goes to remember who you are. May it remind you that you're not alone in this world, that you're not carrying everything by yourself. It's not your burden, that your life is not measured only by what you produce, but by the goodness and kindness and meaning you bring into the lives of others. So may the lights of Shabbat spill gently into the rest of your week, into your work, into your conversations, into your challenges, and into your choices, so that even in the busiest moments, You feel anchored, you feel guided, and you feel held and embraced by the one above. So may those quiet Shabbat moments give you strength when life feels heavy, clarity when the path feels unclear, and peace in knowing that what you do matters and that you matter. The Jews kept the Shabbat, and the Shabbat kept the Jews. May it keep us all here in Nashville and wherever life takes us. Shabbat Shalom, today, tomorrow, and until next Shabbat again. With warm blessings, I'm Rabbi Tiechtel, wishing you all a good Shabbos.